Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Buffalo. We are pleased to have you here, whether you are joining for the first time or have been a regular for a long time. Welcome to this community of hope and possibility. My name is Ken Manley. I am a member of this congregation and I will be worship associate for this service. It is a real pleasure to have Reverend Dr. Lynn Acquafondata with us again to present this morning's sermon. Reverend Acquafondata is a mental health counselor in Rochester, New York, a congregational consultant, and an ordained Unitarian Universalist clergy person. Our regular minister, Reverend Joan Montañez, is on vacation and will return to her home office on August 19th. If you have an emergency and need to contact her, the church staff know how to reach her. Welcome to our virtual worship service. It is good to share this time together, even if we cannot safely share a space. First, a couple of Zoom worship basics. We can't see or hear you, and you can't see or hear each other, but you will see and hear Reverend Acquafondata and me. You can type messages in the chat window throughout the service and afterwards during the virtual fellowship hour. You can also use chat to offer names during the pastoral prayer. When you use chat, make sure you are addressing not just the panelists, but also all attendees. Special thanks go to Josh Disick, John Petroselli, Daniel Besson, Michael Harris, Karen Streech, Bobby Withrow, and all our music soloists who enrich our worship every Sunday. And finally, a quick reminder. We have lots of activities going on throughout the week on the Zoom platform. Check out the newsletter and the e-blast. If you want to receive a copy of the newsletter, please contact the church office. Let us call ourselves to worship with these words from Margaret Weiss. Come into this place with your whole self. The parts that are raw and exposed, the part that is beaming with joy, the part that is seeking the truth, the new, the possibility. Come into this place, open your heart, lay down your burden, lift up your hope for something new to happen. Come into this place with fellow travelers on the journey, some faces new and others familiar, and all welcoming you here, now, to this moment. Come, let us worship together. We light a flame for the duration of our worship service to mark this time as a special time. That flame can be a chalice. It can be in a chalice, like the Unitarian Universalist symbol, or it can be a simple candle. We invite you to light your own flame with us if you wish. Please join us now in the chalice lighting words. We gather in love and community, inspiring one another to transform ourselves to create a more just and compassionate world. Now let us join in singing the hymn, We'll Build a Land.
Where the oil of gladness dissolves all mourning. Oh, we'll build a promised land that can be. Come, build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may them create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream. We'll build a land where we bring the good tidings to all the afflicted and all those who mourn, and we'll give them garlands instead of ashes. Oh, we'll build a land where peace is born. Come, build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may them create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream. We'll be a land building up ancient cities, raising up devastations from old, restoring ruins of generations. Oh, we'll build a land of people so bold. Come, build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream. Come, build a land where the mantles of praises resound from spirits once faint and once weak, where like oaks of righteousness stand a people. Oh, come, build the land, my people we seek. Come, build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may them create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream.
Every week, our congregation takes a good portion of our Sunday morning offering and gives it away to a social justice cause outside our church walls. This month, we are supporting the good work of Release Aging People in Prison, or RAPP, RAP. Formerly incarcerated persons and advocates for those with long sentences founded RAP based on a firm belief that no human being is disposable. Western New York regional organizer Donna Robinson tirelessly supports her daughter and other women incarcerated at Bedford Hills while working toward fair and timely parole, elder parole, and transformation of the criminal justice system. You can use PayPal to make an offering by going to our website, www.buffalouu.org, and clicking on the blue Donate button. Or you can send a check by mail to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Buffalo, 695 Elmwood Avenue, Buffalo, New York, 14222. If yours is a gift to our Share the Plate ministry, please write share on the memo line, and it will be shared between RAP and the church operating budget. If yours is a welcome gift to our congregation, please write Pledge 2020 on the memo line. Either way, please write UUCB on the important line, and we will do the bookkeeping. Let us give joyously to transform the world.
Make a joyful noise, a joyful noise. Make a joyful noise unto the Lord. Make a joyful noise, a joyful noise. Make a joyful noise unto the Lord. The song of a woman sewing, the girls singing to the boys, the hum of a farmer hoeing, ain't that a joyful noise? The sound of a baby sighing, a child crooning to his toys, a mother a lullabying, ain't that a joyful noise? I hear, yes I hear, the Lord's own trumpet sounding in my ear, saying, ching out joyful, now's the time to start, 'cause it's all right as long as it comes from the heart. Sing a joyful noise, a joyful noise, make a joyful noise unto the Lord. Make a joyful noise, a joyful noise, make a joyful noise unto the Lord. The ring of a banjo going, the sound of a fiddler's trill, the swing of a jug a blowing, this Lord, ain't this thy will? The shout of a dancer swinging, a choir in harmony, and even this tune I'm singing, oh Lord, ain't a joy to thee? I hear, yes I hear, the Lord's own gospel ringing loud and clear, saying, children, sing out, raise your voices high. Now, Lord, my voice ain't much, but I will surely try. I'll make a joyful noise, a joyful noise, make a joyful noise unto the Lord. Make a joyful noise, a joyful noise, make a joyful noise unto the Lord.
As I begin this prayer, I invite you to imagine you were a member of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Buffalo in the 1920s, beaming into this online worship as a visitor to the future, a visitor who has never heard of computers or the internet. What wonders would you find here this morning? This Sunday morning, we gather in the magical space of the internet, where we are physically isolated and far apart, and yet present here, all of us in each other's homes, where we can choose to open our minds and hearts wide to each other and to this church community, or to disengage with the click of a button, where we can both long for the way things used to be and give thanks for what is possible in this moment. Spirit of life and love, connect us to today, to the past, to the present, and to the future, bringing our best selves forward as we grieve our losses and give thanks for the blessings of our lives in the midst of these unusual and unsettling times. This morning, we offer prayers and special thanks for the lives of Representative John Lewis and the Reverend C.T. Vivian, civil rights leaders who both died yesterday. May we strive to continue the work they dedicated their lives to. And now let us join together in prayer for those in our midst who struggle and grieve, and appreciate those whose hearts are full today. We pray in the names of all those known and unknown, present and absent, remembered and forgotten. And now let us fill this sanctuary with the names of all our loved ones suffering in sorrow and celebrating in joy. Each name a breath, each breath a prayer. I invite you to write names in the chat. When my sons were young, they loved to create elaborate structures out of building blocks. This set of wooden blocks had various sizes, but the basic block was about 2 by 4 inches. Unlike Legos, these blocks didn't lock together, and there were no instructions on specific structures to create. They could spend hours building tall structures, adding archways and windows and towers and compartments that held various plastic people and animals. When they finished, they would show me their creation and explain it in great detail with immense pride. I would beam with joy and share their enthusiasm. Over the coming hours, we would make our way back downstairs often to admire their latest creation. We would often take pictures, and here are some that I've saved. But the game was not over. The next part always really shook me up. At some points, my sons would look at each other with big grins on their faces, and then they would swing their arms and begin to demolish their creation. The first time that I saw stage 2 of the building block game, I had to use all of my self-control to keep myself from blocking their path and yelling, "No, don't do it." I had to remind myself it's just a child's game, it's not important. I watched with shocked fascination as they crashed the fantastic structure into piles on the floor, shouting triumphantly. Now, some of you might hear this and say, oh, it's just males and their destructive instinct. But I learned through quiet observation that is not at all the key to this game. That way of playing wouldn't have been permitted in my house growing up, not for me and my sister, nor for my brother. Too loud and destructive. But I realized these were just building blocks falling on a carpeted floor. This was their game, not my game, and they were having so much fun. So I stood still without interfering, controlled my emotions, and observed. And I learned something really important that has stayed with me over the years. There's a reason why building an elaborate structure and showing it off are only part of the fun. There's a reason why the demolition of the project later in the day matters. In fact, it's necessary to the game. From a child's perspective, wooden blocks are for building. If they're all tied up in one structure, they become boring. A masterpiece loses its energy and appeal when it just sits there. My son's game involved keeping the energy flowing. They had to knock down their creations in order to start over and build something new the next day. And so they did this with great gusto because it had to be done. I realized they were practicing the art of creativity, which requires both creation and destruction. And they were living out a deep spiritual principle, though of course they had no idea about that at the time. Here's one of my sons after destruction of one of the structures. And here's a new structure created from the wreckage. I later learned that in their Western world child's play, they had tapped into an ancient spiritual wisdom. When adults don't interfere, children are often highly attuned to some of the greater truths in life, even if they don't understand what it all means. Many years ago, I watched Buddhist monks create a sand mandala. First, they consecrated the site with chanting and music. Then they drew the outline on a large flat surface. The process took several days. Over the next days, they blew colored sands onto the surface in an intricate and beautiful design. At the end, shortly after they had completed their masterpiece, the monks began chanting, and they swept up the sand, destroying the design forever, from a gorgeous work of art to nothingness in less than an hour. This practice portrays the concept of impermanence, the idea that the universe constantly changes. After a Tibetan mandala ceremony, some of the sand is given to those gathered, and the rest is poured into a nearby body of water, bringing healing energy back to the earth. Recently, I've attended the creation of several sand mandalas by Katie Jo Sotheby in Rochester, who was taught by Buddhist monks in Nepal. Some of her creations take a week or more, some only a few hours, like the one she created at my mother's house in Syracuse to mark my brother's birthday, a year after the deaths of both my brother and my mother's husband. Katie Jo did meticulous work to create a beautiful scene that depicted meaningful aspects of both my stepfather and my brother's lives. My mother's close friends had gathered to watch and participate. When it was finished, they admired the work for a half hour or so. They took pictures. And then we began to sing and take turns sweeping the sand into a pile. The sweeping away of the sand is emotional. There's a clenching and a wanting to hold on. People cry. But they stand together and chant about peace and hope. It's a mix of sorrow and joy. After the sand is swept up, it's distributed for people to release into any body of water that is moving, like a stream or a river or the ocean. To me, this represents cleansing, healing, releasing, beginning a new journey. Here is a time-lapse video of Katie Jo creating a mandala of women saints.
Peace, salam, shalom, namaste. Peace, salam, shalom, namaste. Peace, salam, shalom, namaste. Peace, salam, shalom, namaste.
When a sand mandala is destroyed, the work of art is gone, but the energy behind it is still present, released into a different form, aimed at a larger purpose. The video doesn't show the sand being distributed and released into bodies of water, but at that point, the sand becomes a small part of the larger whole. Creation and destruction and the continuance of life go hand in hand. Like my son's block towers, a sand mandala represents an intentional choice to create a work of art and destroy it in a ritual fashion for a larger purpose. Like all art, sand mandalas and block towers speak to something important. In our day-to-day lives, we create our own identities, values, and way of life. We find jobs and form careers. We create families, friendships, churches, homes. People have also created societal systems, neighborhoods, ways of socializing and interacting in communities, governance structures, both local and national, financial systems, health systems, roads and highways, and systems to keep them going, policing, jail systems, ways to enforce laws. Some of these creations, both personal and communal, may feel complete and perfect, like works of art created over decades or even centuries. But most are works in progress, like our own lives and the lives of our loved ones. like careers that have been nurtured over the years or shaped by life's events, like homes we've chosen and painted and decorated and updated, or like this church community, lovingly tended and developed and adjusted over the years to meet the opportunities and challenges of the times. Some creations feel perfect to one person and flawed to another. We might choose to let go of certain aspects of our creations and make changes, like committing to lose weight, or redoing a bathroom, or on a larger societal scale, reforming the way we treat mentally ill people from the ways of the 1800s, when ill people were chained up and left in institutions, to today's system of clinics and medicine and therapy in hospital stays. Or like the recent protests for racial justice and the dismantling the structures of white supremacy. Unlike block towers and sand mandalas, we don't always choose the destruction that comes. Sometimes it arrives slowly over time. Sometimes it comes in an instant, from illness, job loss, death, tornadoes, hurricanes, tsunamis, or the COVID-19 pandemic that has disrupted the way we operate and interact. The last few months have been challenging with deaths of so many people and disruption to our way of life. Many of us have lost loved ones and aspects of our lives that matter deeply. Parts of the towers of our lives have come down over the past few months. I've learned from sand mandalas and from my son's exuberant building block game that sweeping away, grieving, and letting go is crucial. It's important to allow our feelings to rise, whatever those feelings may be. It's important to allow ourselves to rest in the discomfort and the unknown, and not to try to rebuild too soon. With that in mind, I'm going to lead you through a kind of guided meditation, where I'll invite you to focus in a structured way on certain aspects of the losses you've experienced over the past few months. Keep breathing. Allow emotions to surface if they do, or to feel numb or distant, but notice whatever it is that's happening for you. I invite you to start this reflection with your eyes open because I will be showing a couple of pictures. Get yourself in a comfortable position. Take a deep breath and then keep breathing in a gentle, regular way. Here is a picture of this church as it stood before the pandemic hit in mid-March. The outside looks the same. The inside does not. Not right now, not today. Remember how the church looked the last time you were there, or if you're new or a visitor, look at this picture and imagine what it might feel like to be inside with lots of people gathered. And now imagine the church as it looks and feels inside right now with its empty parking lots and closed doors. And now pay attention to where you are right now. Notice yourself participating in this service through a computer or phone screen. Metaphorically, the pandemic knocked over some of the blocks that represent what we think of as church. In this case, it's hopefully temporary, but nonetheless, church doesn't look or feel like it did at the beginning of March. I invite you to close your eyes now and imagine that this church is made up of metaphorical building blocks. Let each one of the blocks represent a key element of church as you have experienced it over the years. If you're new here or visiting, just imagine what you think church is or what you want it to be. One block might represent Sunday worship services, another religious education classes. Some might represent certain beliefs and values, a particular minister or staff. What does each block represent to you? Now imagine which blocks were knocked over by the pandemic. The pandemic is not the first time some blocks have been knocked over in this church. If you've been here a while, think back over your history and remember what blocks have been knocked over or pulled out in previous years and then built or restructured. As you reflect on church life over the past months or years, imagine what blocks are lying on the ground. What feelings come up for you as you reflect on what has changed? Don't judge your response, just notice and breathe into your feelings. Now I invite you to move in this guided meditation to your personal and family life. I suggest two options for this part of the meditation. You could imagine a structure built out of children's blocks or some other material that represents your daily life as it was before the pandemic. Or imagine what image might be featured on a sand mandala representing your life as it was before mid-March. Imagine all of the details. Remember how you created the life you had, putting it together year by year, piece by piece. Some things might have been just how you wanted them. Other aspects might have been in process, or even things you hope to get rid of. What activities did you engage in on a daily basis? And now notice what parts of that structure or image that represents your life before the pandemic have changed over the past month. What has been knocked over or swept away? What is it like for you to notice? Imagine taking all that change and loss and uncertainty and bringing it to a stream or maybe a waterfall. Are you ready to release it, or is it still too tender to let go? There are times in life for creating and building. There are times for holding on and enjoying what we've worked so hard to create. There are times in life for destruction, and times in life that destruction comes without our permission. There are times in life for letting go. There are times in life for rebuilding and creating anew. What point are you at in your personal life? And now let's return from the guided meditation to reflect on the bigger picture. Right now, we're in the middle of a partial destruction of American society. Some see our American society, our democracy, our social structures, our court systems, our highways and transportation systems as masterful, the best in the world. Others see them as a work in process. And still others observe it to be severely flawed, maybe even unfixable. Maybe American society is a mix of all three. Whatever the value of our society, it is undergoing major changes right now. Some of the destruction has come suddenly and without invitation through coronavirus, through global warming. Some of the destruction is very intentional and has been simmering for some time. People have been circling the towers of systemic racism and trying to knock them over for a very long time. Recent racially motivated murders at police hands caught on camera have brought racial injustice into clear view and led a cry to value Black lives, to defund and dismantle our police system, to reform prisons, to shift money from military to social services, to take down Confederate statues. As a society, we are in a place of knocking down, overturning, letting go, some by choice and some not by choice. But knocking down is complicated. If there were standalone towers of systemic racism, they would have been overturned a long time ago. But everything is intertwined. Like a child's block tower, you might not be able to remove a foundational block on the bottom layer, a block representing harmful and unjust practices, without knocking over, including things like our current democratic processes and the Bill of Rights, like free speech, our electoral system, and our financial systems. Or imagine a sand mandala that incorporates both the beautiful and the horrifying aspects in one picture. You can't just sweep away parts of the image that represent the violence and the cruelty and the discrimination without sweeping away aspects that are beautiful, parts that many have treasured. For some Americans, the pain and the horrifying parts of American society are too intense and pervasive to see any other option than to sweep away big sections and start fresh. For people's race who has taken away any hope of finding a job during the pandemic and removed any sense of safety, there is no other option than to tear down systemic racism. For others, like myself, white and well off, we do have a choice. I can stay holed up in my home in the suburbs with a steady income and ignore systemic racism and oppression. But I know more and more that I need to be part of bringing the towers down, even though it will change my comfortable life in ways that I can't predict. The COVID-19 pandemic has already changed big things in our lives, and some of those changes may be long-term. A true racial revolution will require even more parts of our lives to change forever, including aspects of our society we've counted on. This upheaval will be frightening and deeply disturbing. At the same time, this upheaval can be exhilarating and hopeful, freeing energy to open to new possibilities. There will come a time to create and rebuild, but destruction is necessary first. We can jump to rebuild and recreate too soon. As a society, we need to make sure we have let go of all we need to let go of first. We need to release and grieve and free up energy so that it can be used in new and healing ways. This time of pandemic and protests gives us an opportunity to tap into an ancient spiritual gift of letting go and joyfully releasing those things that no longer serve us well and maybe never did. Whether our losses are chosen or not, we have an opportunity to use this time to free up powerful energy to prepare for the possibilities of the future. And now let us join in singing together, "Come and Go With Me."
Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound. There will be freedom in that land. There will be freedom in that land. There will be freedom in that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There will be freedom in that land. There will be freedom in that land. There will be freedom in that land where I'm bound. There will be justice in that land. There will be justice in that land. There will be justice in that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There will be justice in that land. There will be justice in that land. There will be justice in that land where I'm bound. There will be singing in that land. There will be singing in that land. There will be singing in that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There will be singing in that land. There will be singing in that land. There will be singing in that land where I'm bound.
Let us say together the words for extinguishing our chalice. As we extinguish the flame of this chalice, may we carry its light with us into the world in the power of peace, faith, justice, and love. May we return to the world this afternoon, inspired to restore our connections with one another, inspired to regain our sense of hope, wonder, and joy. We must take care of ourselves and each other with love and joy if we are to thrive among the world's mayhem. Remember, you are blessed. Remember, you are a blessing. But most of all, remember you are not alone. You are never alone. So be it. Blessed be. And let the church say, Amen.